get ready to dim the lights and lock your doors. Friday Night Frights is here to haunt your weekend. Every Friday night, we bring you spine-chilling tales of the macabre, the mysterious, and the downright terrifying. From cursed artifacts to shadowy creatures lurking in the dark, these stories will keep you on the edge of your seat long after the episode ends. Are you brave enough to listen? Tune in and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more eerie episodes. To celebrate our 2-year anniversary, we're bringing back some of our old favorites, some of the stories that I wrote in the very beginning. A lot of these stories get lost in the archives, and we have a lot of new subscribers that have never heard some of those old stories. So for those of you that have been with us a while, well, you might have heard these stories before. But for those who are new, I hope you enjoy our stories. Time does not always exist in the hidden corners of your mind. We are creatures of habit. We follow the same routine day after day after day. We wake up, make coffee, brush our teeth. These moments of familiar routine are comforting. They keep us at a normal pace. The clock ticks by in a comfortable rhythm, but time is not always on our side, in the hidden corners of our mind. He had lived a good, long life. He hadn't chosen to be alone into his old age, but as he often told others, the right one had never come along. Oh, he had dated as a young man, and the women had favored him. He had his father's good looks, and everyone knew his father had been quite the ladies' man. And he had known women who would have kept a good home and provided a warm bed and companionship into his twilight years, but he hadn't thought so at the time. So he found himself alone now, a creature of habit, comfortable in his routine. It had been years since he had known the warmth and softness of a woman's body, and that is what he was reminiscing about as he removed his pocket watch and set it next to his glass of water on the nightstand. He reclined with a sigh into his comfortable, although sometimes lonely, bed. Dreams soon took hold, and the night passed like so many had before. Sleep a little, wake to relieve himself, slip back into the warmth of the bed, and drift back to sleep. Nothing was different, and there was comfort in that. The morning sun had just begun to crest the horizon. He woke, amazed that he faced another day of life. At this age, every day above ground felt like a miracle, and this day, like every other day, started exactly the same. He rose, slowly stretching his stiff body, put on his slippers and robe, and wandered into the kitchen to start the coffee. After his shower, he dressed, and with an act of final approval, he clicked open his pocket watch and checked his appearance in the mirror. It was 6:15 a.m. His breakfast consisted of the same 2 eggs over easy on toast, another cup of coffee, and then it would be 7 a.m. and time for his morning stroll. He pulled his watch from his pocket and clicked it open. It was 5:45 a.m. Dizziness flooded through his body. He felt dazed and confused. Had he misread it? Had he woken an hour earlier than usual? Were his eyes failing him? No, the pocket watch that fit so perfectly in his palm and had been his trusty companion for over 70 years now read 5:30 a.m. It made no sense. It was information he couldn't process. He poured himself another cup of coffee and put on his reading glasses and looked again. 5:15 a.m. His heart started beating faster. He felt his head spinning and thought he might faint. He didn't expect this was how he would leave this earth, in a state of confusion and dementia. It didn't fit into his tight routine. He sat down in his chair and with a final glance at his watch, he noted the time was now 4:28 a.m. The watch hands were spinning faster now. He could see the second hand spinning, the minute hand ticking backwards at a pace that seemed to match his rapidly beating heart. He sat staring at his watch as the hours ticked in a backward spiral ever faster. He was hypnotized at the speed in which the hands were moving. For the first time, he noticed his own hands. The age spots were lightening, the wrinkles were smoothing, his gnarled, arthritic fingers were straightening. He stood, much quicker than he had in years, not feeling the need to stretch his body, gain his balance. Could this really be happening? He walked to the hallway mirror, and standing there, looking back at him, was a man with many more years of living ahead of him. Oh, the possibilities! The life he had wasted was his again. He could take the trips he'd always longed for, visit the countryside again, buy a boat and sail the ocean, maybe even meet a woman and find love. Whatever miracle this was, he was being given a second chance at life. He yelled in excitement, laughed at the life ahead of him, cried tears of joy as he watched his body grow youthful in front of his very eyes. It was the newspaper boy who noticed. The paper had not been picked up in days. He peeked in the window and found the old man slumped in his chair, his silent, deathly gaze staring at the pocket watch in his hands. The Siren Song by Ginger Winters. The ever-constant waves crashed against the battered remnants of the ship, its once grand sails reduced to tattered ribbons fluttering in the wind. A mere shell of its former glory, it had now become a haunting relic adrift on the unforgiving sea. The wooden hull was weathered and worn by the relentless assault of the waves. Its broken masts jutted out at odd angles, like skeletal remnants reaching towards the heavens. The ship groaned and creaked as it rocked back and forth in the ocean's embrace. How long had he been adrift? Days, years, lifetimes? It didn't matter. He was lost forever on this craft, doomed to walk among the ghosts of his former shipmates and mourn the life he had once lived on land. He'd given it all away for the sea. He had died 1,000 deaths out here in the depths of this abyss. Night after dark night, alone, listening for her song. In love with the mystery itself, he longed for her touch. She was his only salvation, and she was his death. For her song, he had traded his soul. He had doomed all his crewmates. He had forsaken his life. He was trapped in an eternal limbo aboard his decaying vessel. Desperate and consumed by longing, he had sealed his fate to forever wander the vast expanse of the ocean, hoping to hear just one more refrain of her haunting voice. His crewmates had warned him. They begged him to cover his ears, but he refused. They locked him in his cabin and tied him to his bed, but they couldn't prevent his descent into madness. He tore at the rope that bound him till his fingers bled. Unable to break through the cabin door, he crawled through the window and escaped his confinement. She waited for him, out amid the churning waves, her song ever present in his ears. Why didn't the others hear her? Why couldn't they see her? They grabbed him, tried to hold him back, but he tore free, and dove into the depths below. They searched for him for days, and they finally found him, grasping a piece of driftwood, his clothing shred from his body. He was alive, if you want to call it that. His eyes were vacant. His soul appeared to have left his body, leaving a breathing, yet shallow, shell of a man. Try as they might, the crew could not find their bearing or set their sail for home. They searched the horizon for a sign of land and consulted their navigational charts, but it was as if the wind seemed to mock their efforts, constantly shifting and swirling, refusing to grant them a steady course. The compass needle spun wildly, rendering it useless in guiding them towards familiar shores. The stars above provided no guidance, their once familiar constellations obscured by a veil of mist and confusion. The ship remained trapped, drifting, forever denied the solace of finding its way back home. One by one, the crew members died from starvation and thirst. Depression and then madness settled in, leaving only the captain to wander aimlessly, stern to bow, bow to stern, forever pacing the deck of the ghost ship, lost in the hidden corners of his mind.
Captain's Log, Day 67. I cannot bear this torture. I've failed my crew, my employers, and myself. Daily, I drift further into madness. The incessant repetition of her haunting melody echoes within the chambers of my mind. What once was pleasant, even desirable, has become a maddening symphony that reverberates through my very being. I can no longer distinguish between the real and the imagined, and I feel that line blurring with each passing day. I feel the tendrils of madness slowly coiling around my mind. I find myself drifting even deeper into this state of obsession. Her voice rings in my ears, whether awake or sleeping, and fuels my body into insatiable longing that consumes my every thought. That is driving me to madness, and my crew knows it. They do not hear her haunting cry. My men, once loyal and steadfast, now cast sidelong glances and whisper among themselves. I hear their hushed conversations. They are questioning my judgment, and I fear they will revolt. I find solace in the disarray of my quarters. I have thrown the ship's logs and papers haphazardly, the charts crumpled and discarded. My instruments of navigation mock me. The compass spins aimlessly, mirroring the chaos within my own troubled psyche. Sleep eludes me. When I close my eyes, her haunting vision materializes before me, her voice wrapping around my thoughts like a suffocating mist. Her allure is irresistible, drawing me ever deeper into the depths of my own obsession. I catch whispers of mutiny, yet I cannot blame them, for I too question the grasp I have on reality. As I pen these words, my hand trembles. I fear that I'm losing myself, that the siren's song has claimed not only my mind, but my very essence. How I long for respite, for the sanctuary of sanity that now eludes me. May the heavens have mercy on my soul, for I fear that madness has become my eternal companion in this accursed voyage. I only pray that my men find their way back home.
As the ship sails aimlessly through the vast expanse of ocean, the siren's seductive symphony continues to echo. In this desolate realm, the captain is destined to wander, forever ensnared by the enchanting melodies that play incessantly in the hidden corners of his mind. The Haunted Music Box by Ginger Winters. The wind whispers through the cracked windows of the old Victorian mansion, carrying with it a chilling air of mystery. The mansion sits at the far end of a dark and lonely street. Tall eucalyptus trees mix with old stately oaks, and purple-flowered jacarandas line the street on either side. The long leaves of the eucalyptus blend with the jacaranda and magnolia petals littering the ground and create a heavily perfumed scent upon the humid air. An ornate wrought iron gate that has seen better days sits guarding the house beyond, like a giant cobweb stretched across the cobblestone driveway that meanders up to the grand old house. The vines of wild roses snake up the trellis on either side of the big iron gate, the thorns of which would keep out a traveler if the gate itself did not hold one back. The gate holds an air of mystery of its own. Intricate scrollwork surrounds a center plaque of a curious carousel. It is said that a gifted composer once lived in this mansion, back when it was still a glorious sight to behold. Grand parties were thrown within its walls, and the rich and elite of New Orleans society would mix with delegates from foreign countries and exotic visitors from all over the world. But his life had become shrouded in darkness and sorrow. His wife and daughter had succumbed to yellow fever, as so many others had done in the latter part of this last century. Nearly 10% of New Orleans' population had died from this dreadful disease, brought on by the smallest of vampires, the mosquito. In his grief, it is said he became quite mad and poured his heart and soul into creating a music box, infusing it with the essence of his deepest emotions. He was a man obsessed, and one rarely saw him leave his workshop. The house staff feared his violent rages and left. The house soon fell to decay and ruin, while his tormented spirit became obsessed with the intricate carvings of the music box. Day and night he worked, carving small animals for the carousel and perfecting the tune which would play by plucking a set of pins placed atop a revolving cylinder. He took apart every old clock in the house to study the mechanics of the interior workings and to create a heartbeat for his musical creation. In his obsession, he kept a diary detailing every step of every failure and success. But as so often with one who falls victim to the madness of creative genius, he neglected to eat or sleep, and that took its toll on his health. But still he forged ahead until the day his creation was perfected. That night, he lit the candles in the grand ballroom, donned his best attire, and placed the music box in the center of the room. With bated breath, he turned the tiny hand crank, and the most beautiful and magical tinkling of sounds emitted from the magical musical box. If you could only have witnessed the spectacle of that night. If one had looked in the window, they would have seen the mad composer dancing and twirling with his beautiful wife and daughter round and round the ballroom all night long. It was glorious. It was perfect. He had brought them back to life. In that one melody, he had tricked death itself. He danced and laughed and twirled around the room. Tick-tock, tick-tock. No, no, he screamed. More time. I need more time. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The house has sat abandoned for years, withering away in the Louisiana heat. Paint peels from its once grand facade, and the windows are mostly all broken by unruly teenagers who practice their baseball throwing arm by launching rocks at the windows. Inside, shadows dance on the faded wallpaper, as if dancing to some macabre symphony of their own. The house has an air of haunting, which draw the bravest of kids to wander through its empty halls, a result of a dare or a rite of passage, to prove to their peers that they hold no fear. But as night descends upon the decaying estate, one can often hear a soft melody echoing through the corridors. It is a delicate tune, ethereal, yet tinged with an unmistakable sorrow. And if one glances through the bubbled glass of the ballroom, one might see a man in top hat and tails, holding hands with his beautiful wife and their little girl in a full-length gown, twirling around the room to the beautiful refrain of the music box. Thank you for listening to this week's story, and I hope you'll join us next week as we bring you more great classic tales on Friday Night Frights. And until then, have a great week, everyone.